I am elated today for our special guest, Maryam Henein, who is an investigative journalist for 25 years. She's a functional medicine consultant and coach. She's best known for directing Vanishing of the Bees, and she is the founder of honeycolony.com, an online health and wellness magazine and marketplace. I am in Florida, and she is in Costa Rica. Yeah, well, today we're going to try our best to focus on health freedom and just health freedom and how it correlates to your current here and now. I know, right, as we were starting this interview, you were just talking with somebody about maybe possibly censorship or free speech being restricted.
Yeah, I can get into that it seems that, well, it first happened, I guess, in 2017, where I gave an interview regarding what I call techno-fascism in the context then of selling CBD oil and CBD coming after me for offering CBD that has no psychoactive properties, that is really a miraculous plant compound, and being one of the first on the front lines to offer CBD long before Kim Kardashian and Martha Stewart in 2016. And given she is still a activist speaking against systemic pesticides and Bayer crop science, but I gave an interview, and it was novel then to get banned from Twitter, where it's now so common. And then she basically blamed me for putting her 10 years career on the line. So I felt kind of infected. And yesterday I hung out with someone who's awake, and they told me that they were scared to hang out with me. And then just called me and told me that he got locked out of, we were discussing his folders, and he's awake and a patriot, and all his clips and folders were he has no access to them. And so he said that his kind of fears were realized. And it's happened before, like in regards to Operation Quack Hack, interviewing someone, having a preliminary phone call, and then an hour later, 5 FDA officers showing up at their house and ransacking their home. And of course, like, I can't take credit for it because that sounds egotistical, and who am I? I'm a little bee with a big mouth. But it's happened enough times where it's a little bit suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a good opportunity, real quick, to remind everybody to smash that like button on the NHF YouTube channel, and then while you're there, also subscribe, please, to stay up to date. And then while you're doing that, head over to Maryam's YouTube channel as well, and smash that subscribe button, because
smash it.
Exactly. Got to always throw that in there as well too. So.
Well, yeah, we the people. We this is a war against we the people, and together we can make a difference if we stick together like bees and stick to our constitutional rights, and instead of wallowing in petty differences, but rising up, because medical freedom and freedom of speech is uber important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you learned about the NHF about a year ago, and it had a lot to do with your passion and interest in techno-fascism and somewhat.
So I don't have a passion for techno-fascism. I'm a recipient of the effects of techno-fascism, and so I used to be in the mainstream, and I used to write for popular rags like Detour and LA Magazine and Maxim and The Hollywood Reporter and Penthouse. And after making Vanishing of the Bees and blowing the whistle on Bayer crop science, that it became more and more difficult to place my stories, let alone get payment for my brilliance and ability to weave, to do reporting and put together a long form story. So I was looking to place, I believe, a story regarding CBD, and came across your magazine and NHF, and learned how of its history and how long it's been around, and then reached out to Scott, and we hit it off, and I felt really honored to sit with him, and he's so wise and has so much information. So whenever he would visit LA and I was still in Los Angeles, then we would connect. And I've written a couple of maybe 4 pieces for NHF.
Great. Yeah, I'll have to find those and freshen up as well, because I love how you're into permaculture, and then I've done my fair share of beekeeping as well too. So I mean, this is all stuff we could possibly expand on and unpack in other shows.
So yeah, I got my permaculture certificate, I guess 2015 now, so 5 years ago, actually in Central America, traveling with a group of people, many that I keep in touch with through Guatemala. And then what a lovely experience, Guatemala, Nicaragua. And then we ended up going to Envision, and I was speaking that year and giving a talk on vanishing of the bees and our food supply that is poisoned. And so I got my certificate, but it's still quite theoretical in that I haven't applied it, and you can apply it to things beyond farming because it's really looking at systems and how you can optimize how you can optimize a system and make it work in a holistic way. So it's applicable to many facets of life.
Well, I think too with some of these issues, because in permaculture we learn the problem is the solution. So like a problem contains a solution in and of itself, and we just have to change our perspective of the problem to see the solution that's contained within it. So
sorry.
Well, no, that's why permaculture really is about systems, and it's the idea of this like holistic approach to our relationship, with the earth. So just about anything that we're talking about is having to do here on planet Earth. And so, just the idea of being very optimistic and understanding, if we focus too much on problems, well, then we're not focused on implementing a solution or being the solution, exemplifying.
Absolutely. The bees teach us be the change that we want to see. And the theme I've been getting as of late that I still have to explore and meditate on is like, instead of fighting the old system, creating the new system, not the new world order, but what is coming out of this oppression and that we're seeing, because no matter what, this Rona, the lockdowns or the measures that the governments are coming up with don't merit what's really at hand. I mean, and the resounding from the normies or the people who are still asleep, arguably, is how could the whole world be lying? And once you look beyond the surface and you connect the dots, you see that they very much could be lying. And this has been a plan that's been in place for at least, if not more, a decade. And all of the predictive programming that we've been fed through Hollywood or through sci-fi movies has led us to this. And at the same time, there's a great awakening that's occurring. And so what do we do other than we're trying to wake people up, but we have to focus on solutions and not just like marinate in the problem.
Well, I just recently saw the new Plandemic. So you could share with our viewers, audience, some of the research you contributed to that.
Well, I was working on contributing to, so Plandemic is a movie directed by Mickey Willis. My dear friend and fellow journalist, Danny Katz, helped put together the script, because even though it's a documentary, like with Vanishing of the Bees, I wrote the script. There's still like a structure to it. So I was happy to contribute in whatever little way, specifically in this respect, in regards to Anthony Fauci, America's doctor, and
Fauci, sorry, I have to throw it
and Billy Boy Gates. And I pretty much live on Twitter in that, like, I'm just sharing as I find things, and I love the platform, even though Jack doesn't love us. So Plandemic, no, I watched it twice, and I thought surely people will wake up.
This is so. Or the new one?
No, the second one. I contributed.
Indoctrination, right? Yeah. Indoctrination.
Yeah, how appropriate. So that surely people would wake up, but mind you, I mean, the one response I got was on my Facebook. I had to put it in 2 different lines because Facebook denies the link. I think it accepts it through BitChute. But was that Fauci's IQ is outweighs those of us combined, which to I said, first of all, do you know your own IQ? Mine's 137. And do you know Fauci's IQ? And also, this goes beyond intellect. There's a lot of smart people that are asleep, and it really invites what's going on. One must use discernment. One must use critical thinking skills. One must be able to connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
And this documentary does a beautiful job of all of that. And yet still the cognitive dissonance that occurs because really someone has to reevaluate every single thing that they've known in their life. And that's just too big of a red pill to swallow. But if we can at least plant a seed and hope that in the end the truth will come to light, because there's too many of us truthers out there now, and they were able to do this, like I called Fauci the pandemic impresario, and he has been able to do this with HIV, with SARS, with Zika, which H1N1, and just like Larry Brilliant has said in a speech. Larry Brilliant is an epidemiologist who's worked for the WHO and who's worked for Google and who's behind the scenes, but says, every time we get better, and they've topped themselves. Like, bravo, global elitists.
But on one hand, with people and their discernment, it's not just that. It's not like we all have to be psychologists, but on one hand, that's part of the cognitive dissonance, because if people aren't wanting to go within and really get into their subconscious mind, there's no way to like reconfigure, their belief systems, which is causing the cognitive dissonance to begin with. So
yeah, I'm minored in psychology, and it's always come naturally to me to kind of filter things through like understanding what motivates someone, having empathy, being able to see their perspective, or being self-aware. There's a lack of self-awareness. There's this lack of just accountability, and I'm led by truth. And so that includes saying I'm wrong, because I'm not married to anything other than learning. And there's a lack of discernment and this deliberate dumbing down of society. I've been talking about this since Vanishing of the Bees, and realizing that our food supply is poisoned, and that these poisons, whether we're talking about systemic pesticides or heavy metals, there's studies that show that they rob us of IQ points. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the IQ and EQ is very important. And I pray for the world to have more self-awareness and to work, I'm working on myself and been on a spiritual path since the age of 13. And I do believe that we can grow, and we're not the same 1.0 version of ourselves. And every day is a new day. And being a functional medicine consultant, it's steeped in positive psychology and making long-lasting positive changes. And those can be difficult, especially when we're being traumatized on a daily basis now. But I really wish that more individuals would have a little bit more humbleness and self-awareness to be able to say, I'm sorry, to be able to see that being triggered, let's say in relationship, is really an invitation to look at yourself rather than point the finger. Mm-hmm. So that takes a high EQ, I guess, and we're seeing an epidemic of narcissists, of sociopaths, psychopaths, and for a long time I used to say, do these people bleed red? And now we're seeing this complete disconnect in people just being compliant and doing their job. Everybody's doing their job at what expense? So who's going to be the people who are going to be like, no, I'm going to fight back? Muzzles, the face diaper today, mask, vaccine tomorrow, and the global elitists are very happy at the compliance. It's astounding what has changed and the normalization of pathology in 7-8 months. How many months has it been now? 9 months, 8 months
since the whole COVID-19.
Yeah, I'm talking about the coronavirus. I've been covering this since January and started covering it with the Google whistleblower Zach Voorhees, and he was sponsored to do some independent bits for Alex Jones, and I proposed that we do a man on the street on the coronavirus. That was January 16th, and I suggested to call it, "Is this the virus that didn't cry wolf?" And I could tell when I was doing my intro that he didn't quite get what I meant. Well, ladies and gents, this is exactly what I meant. So whether it's real or not, it's real. Is this the virus that didn't cry wolf? And they've been, like I said earlier, been rolling these out. And when the Zika virus, which is a benign virus that was patented in 1947 by the Rockefellers, I was saying back then in 2017, oh, you want to get on a plane? Did you get your Zika vaccine? And didn't happen then. And now seemingly they're they're ready. So what can we do to stop this now?
Well, what do you recommend? I mean, I think you have another interview coming up and our time's dwindling down here. So what is a good recommendation to help stop this, would you say, for people tuning in right now?
Well, I don't have the answer. My job as a light worker and a journalist and a functional medicine consultant is to extend my hand and help people unplug from the matrix and to lead by example. I wish I had more answers. It's kind of hard if you're socially distancing, if people like me are highly censored. And so I'm grateful, Alex, and to Scott for any opportunity to use my throat chakra and to speak truth or to provoke critical thinking. You know, I think on one hand, I want to hear from more people who have woken up during this period, and that coronavirus has caused an awakening. And so I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to do whatever, and I will not take a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even want to get tested. I don't want to swab that might be infected, that might be taking my DNA to cross the blood-brain barrier up and tickle my brain. No thanks.
Yeah. Well, I feel like some of what you've mentioned is aligned with what's called a shadow integration. So on one hand, this comes back to what I alluded to about bringing awareness to our subconscious mind. So individually, we go through a shadow integration, but then collectively, this may be what we're experiencing right now. So when you mention somebody being triggered, it's an opportunity for one to integrate an aspect of themselves that they're trying to, suppress, but it's just an unresolved trauma. But even that could be viewed from like an information perspective, because like everything's frequency and information, and that's another, topic in
It's very important what you're saying. I mean, is how many people that are like, oh, you're triggering me, so I'm just going to cut you out from my life, instead of like, no, I'm a beautiful mirror, and let's focus on solutions and love, and let's this is how we learn, and it invites you not to be so left brain and really connect with your heart, and realize that this is an invitation to go deeper. And so very few people are able to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And it's also not the message, but how you deliver that message. And I tend to be a pretty good mirror for people in relationship, that their stuff comes up, my stuff comes up, and trying to focus on taking responsibility. That I really cannot stress that enough. And it's like, if someone is like, I'm just going to do my job, I don't want to lose my business. Well, maybe it's time to lose your business, or it's time to really step into the unknown and what makes you happy. I think in these times, what is more important than friends and family, nature, gratitude is alchemy, and just really focusing on the positive. And I personally have a renewed sense of gratitude, even for fellow humans, where when I was living in Los Angeles for a long time, I was pretty jaded for a myriad reasons. And now just delighting in hugging someone and seeing other humans that are trying and wanting to make a positive change. Yeah.
Our vibe attracts our tribe. Yeah.
Our vibe, yeah, that's so true. And being responsible, taking responsibility for your own vibe. And it's like, I go through, as an empath, I consume a lot of negative information every day, and have to exactly, have to alchemize it.
Well, perhaps we could schedule another talk, because I'd love to get into, I saw your video with the Muse. I've used the Muse before. I started using the heart math M-Wave like a decade ago. So I'm really into the biofeedback, so we can measure whatever we want to call it, our coherence, our intelligence, and all of that.
I have one more hour. But I mean, if you have to go, I was just checking.
Okay, no, we can continue. Like I said.
Okay. Okay, you're going to edit anyway, right? Any pauses. Yeah, I wish so much that I brought Muse with me, and I've really fallen off the bandwagon of meditating. I wake up and just start listening to the news, and been doing that all day and trying to have more balance. Now, luckily, I'm in the jungle, so I think I have a lot more energy here, and I believe that the earth can absorb a lot of negativity.
Well, alchemize it, like you mentioned too.
Yeah.
I like to visualize when meditating, and talking about this, I need to do it more, but I like to visualize the core of the earth as a pure fire, like this pure fire that's a purifier. So any vibration, any information, because there's one way to see that, like as fear, we can call fear fear, or we can just say it's a vibration, it's an information. And then when we set the intention for it to, be transmuted in the pure fire. So that's,
I like that, pure fire.
Our relationship, with Gaia, because that's why, you're in the jungle, you're very blessed. I'm aware of that. I've lived in Kauai for 5 years. So walking around, barefoot, and, it's amazing. Just like antioxidants are good inside of our body, we're getting all of this, good energy from walking around barefoot, and, it even grounds our energy too. Cause I can only imagine what you go through, like being out there in the jungle, but then still trying to stay up to date with all this news, and you just don't want to overload your
system. Yeah,
nervous system.
I'm a little bit overloaded. It was easier doing it with Zach and respectfully each doing our research and then comparing notes, and brought a lot of joy. And he's not here. He's back in the city, so that makes it more difficult, because I feel like I've lost my best friend, and I'm really torn on whether to go back. And I feel like, well, God brought me here, but also personally, like it's a little bit too wet for me.
What's the annual rainfall, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know. The irony is, like, I just healed from mold toxicity, and I was having conversations with my friends. Like, I don't know how I do with them. Like, I didn't think that the actual wetness would bother me. Like, it's just too much. And I actually considering going back to America, and we're on the heels of September. And as we've been told, it's going to be the greatest fall, the darkest winter, especially when that influenza and the corona collide, and they get their proverbial hard-ons, and, telling people to go get vaccinated for the flu, for the coronavirus, where in reality it exacerbates the coronavirus, and is not a good idea. And so these global elitists are, I was saying for such a long time that this vaccine safety is the most important topic of our lives, and
wow,
century.
See, now we're talking. I like hearing things like that, when people can really prioritize something urgent. And I'm sorry for interrupting you.
It's something that I've been talking about for years on Honey Colony, and Wikipedia had a new condition that doesn't exist called vaccine hesitancy. And on my Twitter pin, you can see, like, I did a spoof on vaccine mania and vitriol disorder, where I'm taking their script, the Ministry of Truth, and flipping it around. And it's like, these people are maniacal, they're maniacs, they're obsessed with their effing vaccines. And pharmacia means sorcery. And when you look at what goes into these vaccines, like, imagine Billy Boy Gates over a cauldron where the witch's hat on, and just like, oh, let's put in a little latex, let's put a little polysorbate 80, let's put a little aluminum mercury, let's grow our viruses on fetal tissue, let's put some chicken DNA. I mean, really, let's look at that. That's sorcery. That's a witch's brew of poison crap. Modified with their new, DNA, RNA vaccine. It's already that some people's brains have been genetically modified. They're eating genetically modified food. Yes, the body. I reversed lupus and fibromyalgia. I've learned how to walk again. I'm 47 years old, and I'm proud of it. To say, like, do I look 47? No. So I want to walk my talk and really be an inspiration to others, because I've been able to get my health back, and we are miraculous. I do believe, yes, your mind, you can overcome. The body is amazing and can heal, but this is really a time to, no one in the task force mentions the immune system. It's not going to be by eating pizza. I was looking at a Fauci talking to Matthew McConaughey, all right, about, Matthew asks him about zinc, and Fauci doesn't even, he goes, the things that you mentioned, he doesn't even dare to repeat zinc. He basically says it's a placebo, and he goes, if it makes you feel better here, and he does this, it makes you feel better here, but it does nothing. So that's wrong, Fauci. When was the last time you put a stethoscope to someone's heart? Zinc, there's many studies that have shown that it boosts the immune system. Like, the only person who's mentioned zinc is President Trump.
And he personally took it. That was part of he took that and the hydroxychloroquine. So he
And he
walked.
says he took azithromycin. How do you say that antibiotic? Which I'm not a fan of antibiotics.
Okay.
So I wouldn't take a broad spectrum antibiotic without doing a culture. I wouldn't take one.
Yeah,
I have silver, but nonetheless, he did take zinc, and yeah, he did speak about. He said the other day, like, we saw what they did with that one with HCQ, and because it's generic and there's but it's still allopathic medicine. Allopathic medicine is still the third leading cause of death. So for me, I would take quinine, I would take quercetin, I would get into hyperbaric chamber. There's many paths to Rome, and that just brings me quickly. I'll just mention Operation Quack Hack, which is coronavirus COVID-19 is a dragnet to it's like COVID pass. It's COVID pass to usher in whatever they want. And so there's an attack. The FDA is attacking people that sell natural remedies like myself. So they've come after me for selling vitamin C, chelated silver, and magnesium, for instance. They're going after people who are selling NAC, NAC. And in reality, it's because they're doing their own studies and they want to hijack and patent and own these natural remedies and just have people believe that the vaccine or their whatever treatments like remdesivir are the only ways to treat. It's like we have a virome, people. We live with viruses, just like we live with bacteria. And again, Fauci has never mentioned the immune system.
Well, something that blew my mind when I learned about permaculture is how most of the germs that I had just been told about are actually beneficial to our health. So it was such a, just my mind was blown, to really know these statistics, that they are our allies. They help promote our health. And there's a simple way to look at it as it's just the more information that is exchanged, the healthier we are, because there's more communication happening at that microbial level, and then this gets into the gardening. I'd love to hear what you love most about Costa Rica, because I think we all know, you're not particularly happy about all the rain and all of that, but you kind of
the nature, the overwhelming nature. Like,
you have a favorite waterfall near you that you can get to? Something that
no, I haven't really explored much because there has been curfews and lockdowns here.
I didn't stop here. We had I viewed it as nobody's going to infringe on my right to exercise.
Well, I didn't have a car for a long time when I was with Zach, and I was really so, I mean, for me, it's like the insects. I have deer in my backyard. I have a family of boars. I don't know how many butterflies I see a day. When I venture out and I have seen waterfalls. It's all marvelous, and I think it's really grounding. So I lived across the street from a 5G pole. I don't know if you could say that as Cinco. I say Cinco Geo, and it really had a negative impact on my just being in the city. So
Shungite. I wear this.
Yeah, Shungite.
Yeah. Shungite.
Yeah, I have a Shungite pendant in my bathroom that is not on me right now. But yeah, Shungite. I'm gonna get some C60, which supposedly works like Shungite, and
is that
but they're sorry.
C60 in oil.
Carbon 60.
Yeah, do they put them in oil, like olive oil or avocado?
Yeah, I don't know the kind I'm getting. I don't know if it's in.
It's like a buckyball, right? What I've heard about it, it's like a buckyball if you look at it under a microscope.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. But
structure, yeah.
It's protective as well, and they're also turning 5G here in the jungle. And for people who how could
we could do a whole show on 5G because it's something before, there was different possibilities with Wuhan and that being
Yeah, I was saying that in January, that I think that the mandatory vaccine, something in the vaccines was parlaying with the fact that it's a smart city and that it was really a testing ground. But I was told not to say anything because I couldn't prove it, and it's just my hunch. And that brings up Charles Lieber and his role as a nanoscientist, a top nanoscientist in the world with 50 plus patents and a tap on the wrist instead of being charged with espionage. And then that leads into just calling it the China virus. No, it's not the China virus. Behind the scenes is Chapel Hill. BSL-4 is Fort Detrick, even Winnipeg lab. This definitely did not come from a wet market. I believe this is lab designed virus, and who knows how many strains there are currently because they mutate. And I also just say quickly, like they talk about a second wave, but I think we're going to see a third wave, that we're in the second wave, because they hijack the numbers that mean nothing with their faulty PCR tests, and that the third wave might actually be real, because we know that part of the lockdowns has been erecting 5G geopoles all over. And what happens when they do turn them on and we see sudden deaths, oxygen levels go down, thrombosis, cardiovascular issues.
Good point, especially with schools too. Supposedly, they're installed at schools. And
yeah.
Well, on one hand, since we have a little more time, I would love to hear some of your visions. So let's say more and more people are waking up every moment, every day. People are waking up to be empowered. Taking personal responsibility for their health freedom. And really, I feel like it's not like it has to be all of us. There can be like a tipping point, and
tipping point of truth.
Like we're there, and it's like, of course, we have to be prepared for the worst, but we have to also be prepared for the best, and to do our best to be an example of just what we want to see. So, what would you say? Like let's say a year from now, what's a best case scenario?
Alex, it's something that I've just started thinking about, and I think I've been so preoccupied with reporting on what's going on and being on the front lines that at the same time, maybe I mentioned it earlier, it's important to focus on creating the new and not fighting the old system. So I haven't looked into it other than like grateful that I'm here. I would like to, personally or for the world, to topple. I do think that the tipping point of truth has arrived, and that we are the silenced majority, and that there's no stopping us, that God wins. And what I would like, I would like for people to step into their power and realize that we are an incredible species. At the same time, it's like Amazing Polly was saying, like,
love her. She's great.
Yeah, Amazing Polly was saying with this new discovery regarding the fact that the PCR test is really picking up chromosome 8, is it, in our own bodies. So it's it's like if people don't get this, that they go back and return to the soil. That sounds brutal, but if you're not going to be aligned with waking up, and 1 in every 2 people is sick, there are going to be deaths, or there are going to be people who are not going to make it. I call it COVID-19 death by default, because people are dying, or whether it's suicide, whether it's because they've been ventilated. It's not because of the corona. It's because of the things, the default measures, being put on a ventilator. And it's like, so I guess all that to say that this is a time to get aligned with the truth. And there is a soft culling, I think, that's happening, and we will see. I don't know, how do you see a year from now? This is supposedly a 10-year plan with Agenda 2030. So maybe I haven't focused enough on.
Well, I'm really into something called the Thrive movement. Have you seen the movie Thrive?
Yes.
So when Thrive came out, I reached out.
He also directed Thrive.
Awesome. Well, I reached out to him, on behalf of Scott, and I'm hoping to interview him as well. And
nice.
I'm excited for that. Yeah, and that's why it was all just a bunch of serendipity, because I started coming up with questions for him, and literally my questions were answered by the universe, because I'm like, when's Plandemic 2 coming out? And then I found out that it literally came out like the next day. But just a good intentional community where all of us can just do an audit, like right now, of our network, and the people that we're very close to, and just always trying to nurture our network and grow our network. And just like you and I right now, how we're, getting to know each other and connecting. As soon as we connect with one new person, it's not just that person, it's their network, and that's why trust and rapport, it's obviously earned, but, due to just a lot of common interest and things like that, we can really speed it up. So the
business moves at the pace of trust, at the speed of trust. Have you heard that?
I haven't, no, but I should write that down.
Yeah, I just heard that, and I actually meant to mention intentional communities, but I'm not a hippie, so I think, like, I call it the piggy effect, like in Lord of the Flies, when you head out to do something revolutionary or novel or altruistic, and then before you know it, you're pushing Piggy off of the cliff, and you've become the very thing that you are trying to avoid. So I think it's very important, like, because I say that because we hear a lot of intentional communities that are commune-like, that have cult-like aspects, or are hippie, or there's
Well, people that haven't done the shadow work, that they really shouldn't be in community yet. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, it's so true. Forgiving, shadow work, and it's like this new generation, with Silicon Valley of like left brain that are really kind of like have an Android-like aspect to them, and think that it's about the other person making the doing the work, and doing your shadow work it's ongoing. You think sometimes that you've dealt with something, but here it is coming up again, and just always like pointing the finger, because it's so easy to blame. And that's like, it also goes into like using nonviolent communication, really kindness, not judging, really creating a safe space where you can talk things out and be supported. That is definitely the future. And here in this community, in at least this part of Costa Rica, there is a lot of that. There's a lot of that. At the same time, there's a lot of hippies that just like, I'm just going to stay in my bliss bubble, and I don't really want to get involved. And then they also get wisps of information, but it's not rooted in any substance to really look at the bigger picture. And so to be able to have a sense of the bigger picture, and then the micro, I'll just tell you real quick, I was interviewing the editor-in-chief of Adbusters, because they are organizing hashtag White House siege that's going to be happening in mid-September, right, where they're taking over Lafayette Square. You've heard this?
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck. But all the way up to the elections. But I was speaking to him. I don't know what made me think of this. I was speaking to him, and I'm like, why can't you go and vote in person? You guys are getting together and protesting, or in front of the Master General, or protesting against Donald Trump. Then why can't you just go and vote in person? And I was telling him this is no less fatal than the flu. And he's like, oh, you're getting lost in the details. And I was like, buddy, like that's where the devil lies. Like people do not look at the details, and then they just do these broad brush strokes and don't see the minutia. So anyways, it goes back again to responsibility, to having some really being in touch with your heart and the resonance of the heart, having done heart math, that it outweighs that of the brain. And we're living in a disembodied society where people are climbing up in their heads, where like now they're peddling VR. It's like, why do you think the muzzles are to help? The 6 feet apart is to help the AI gain its smarts to be able to read something beyond the face. The 6 feet apart is to keep us away from each other, where we're not in resonance with one another. It's ushering in this AI, and that's what we have to come together against, to not lose our humanity, our hearts.
Yeah.
Like, again, I think that's part of the solution, to be in our hearts and to be kinder. And like the real virus is one of hate and one of fear. And I know, because I've almost been infected by hate many times, seeing the injustice, and it's like, I don't want to have that hate even towards the demon rats, or the other side, or even the person wearing the face diaper, that it's like you're tackling someone, you're choking someone. How messed up is that? Where is the social distancing? You're got all in someone's face and you're touching them because they're not wearing a mask, but yet you're it's like, where's logic in that? Anyway, just to be in your hearts and be kind and not fall prey, because then you're doing the very thing that you're trying to fight against, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've heard, so what Karl Marx said, accuse your enemy of what you are guilty of while you're doing it. So understanding that can provide such an excellent...
Is that an actual quote of Karl Marx?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to find that. Yeah. Accuse your enemy of what you're doing while you're doing it?
Accuse your enemy of what you are guilty of while you're doing it, because it creates confusion. And what ends up happening is people get so disillusioned that they can't tell the difference between what's fake and what's real.
Yeah, well, that's what they want. That's what William Casey said, right?
Exactly. You can't.
Pelosi talks about that. She's really good at that stuff. Pelosi. I'm just looking at the time. I'm going to just...
Yeah, it's perfect. Well, I think we chatted enough that we can, eventually we'll do another one, and we'll try to make some shorter videos on specific...
I would love that, Alex. Thank you for this opportunity. There was a lot of synergy, and I always welcome the opportunity to talk about the spirit, because there's not enough talk about that.
Well, just know with NHF, we do have to kind of always focus on like hard science,
Sure.
But on one hand,
how can you avoid speaking about the spirit?
We believe in free speech as well too, and we'd like to be that type of platform. So thank you for your courage.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
If there's any closing remark you'd like to say, or a call to action? I know earlier I mentioned honeycolony.com for people to.
Sure. If people want to buzz on over to honeycolony.com, they can use, if this is okay, 10 off, TNOFF. I invite people to follow me on Twitter, which my handle is Maryam Henein, and also check out my YouTube channel.